Chapter 8. The Giant Spider. The first step into the jungle was the last one they'd take without fear. The dense canopy above cast thick shadows over the trail, the air thick with humidity and the buzzing of unseen insects. Sam, Rachel, James, and Lily had been on this trail for days, hiking deeper into the jungle than any of them had ever dared before. They were looking for an adventure, a challenge. They had no idea they were walking straight into the heart of something far worse than they could have imagined. At first, it seemed like just another typical day in the wild. They had set up camp beside a creek, eaten their fill of rations, and joked about how they were surely lost. But not to worry, they had each other. The jungle, thick and untamed, had always seemed like a place for discovery, but the deeper they went, the heavier the air felt, as if the jungle itself was watching them, waiting. They had lost the trail hours ago, but the creeping sense of unease had only grown since. Rachel, the most adventurous of the group, had been the first to spot it. A faint trail of strange markings in the dirt. They were out of place, far too symmetrical and regular to be from any animal. The lines were long, almost like a web, stretching across the ground and disappearing into the thick foliage. "Guys, look at this," Rachel said, crouching down to examine it. Her fingers brushed against the markings, and the others gathered around. "I think this is some kind of path, but who or what made it?" Sam, ever the skeptic, shook his head. "It's probably some kind of wild animal. We've seen tracks like that before, right?" But even as he said it, something in the air shifted. The trees seemed to grow darker, the wind became still, and the distant calls of birds ceased. Lily pulled her arms tight around herself, an instinctive reaction that none of them could quite explain. "I don't like this," she muttered. "We're fine," James said, his voice firm, but there was a slight quiver in it. "We'll just follow this. We've come too far to turn back now." They followed the trail, pushing through thick undergrowth, their steps crunching on the hard-packed earth. The web-like markings on the ground seemed to spread out, winding through the trees in a maze, leading them farther into the jungle. Sam kept his eyes peeled for any signs of wildlife, but there was nothing, just the oppressive silence. Even the insects had gone quiet. Hours passed before they stumbled upon it. At first, it seemed like a natural part of the landscape, an opening in the jungle, a small clearing. But as they stepped closer, the sight before them made their blood run cold. The ground beneath them gave way to a vast cavern, stretching deep into the earth. The air was thick with a strange, damp odor, and the walls of the cavern seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. They could see the dark shapes of something moving in the depths, shadows skittering across the walls. And then they saw them. Massive, glistening shapes hung suspended from webs, their bodies enormous, their legs thick and spindly. They were spiders, giant spiders, but they were unlike any they had ever seen before. These creatures were intelligent, their eyes gleaming with a hunger and awareness that made Sam's heart pound in his chest. The spiders didn't move at first. They simply watched, their many eyes fixed on the group, their bodies swaying slightly in the air. The webbing stretched across the cavern, some thick as ropes, others thin and delicate, glistening with an eerie sheen. "They're waiting for us," Rachel whispered, her voice trembling. "Get back," Sam said, his voice low but urgent. "We need to get out of here." But it was already too late. The first spider moved with terrifying speed, its legs clicking against the stone floor as it dropped from the ceiling. It landed with a thud, and within seconds more followed, each one emerging from the shadows, their movements fluid and deliberate. The air around them seemed to thicken, the sound of their bodies scraping against the walls like nails on a chalkboard. "They're not just animals," James muttered, his voice shaking. "Run!" Sam shouted, but as he turned, he saw that the webs had already spread across the exit. The spiders were closing in, blocking any escape. Panic surged through them, and they bolted in the opposite direction, deeper into the cavern. But the walls were closing in, the passage narrowing, and the spiders were everywhere. Their bodies swarmed around them, their legs clattering against the stone as they hunted with terrifying precision. The ground beneath them trembled, and Sam stumbled, falling to his knees. He looked up to see Rachel on the ground, struggling to free herself from the sticky web that had already wrapped around her legs. The spiders were closing in, and her screams echoed through the cavern. "Help her!" Lily screamed, reaching for Rachel, but one of the spiders lunged, its jaws snapping at her. Lily recoiled, her eyes wide with terror. "No! No!" she shouted. Sam scrambled to his feet, adrenaline pumping through him as he grabbed a nearby rock and hurled it at the spider. The creature screeched in pain, but it didn't stop. It lunged again, its legs stretching out to ensnare Rachel. Sam didn't hesitate. He grabbed Rachel by the arms and dragged her free from the web, leading them toward the cavern's narrowest path. She was pale, her eyes wide with fear, but she didn't resist. Together they ran. There was no time to think, no time to plan. They could hear the spiders moving behind them, their legs skittering on the stone, their hissing growls growing louder. But something was wrong. As they ran, Sam could feel the webbing brushing against his skin, and something in the air seemed to shift. He glanced back, his heart sinking, as he realized the spiders weren't just chasing them. They were trying to corral them, herding them towards a specific point in the cavern. The creatures were in complete control. Rachel screamed as something sharp pierced her leg. Sam turned to see one of the spiders had managed to get too close, its fangs sinking into her flesh. The venom spread quickly, her body jerking in spasms as she collapsed to the ground. "No!" Sam shouted, trying to reach her. But before he could move, another spider lunged, its legs locking around his shoulders and pulling him backwards. "Help!" he screamed, but his voice was swallowed by the sound of the creatures closing in. The last thing he saw before everything went black was the reflection of 100 eyes glowing in the darkness, watching him with an insatiable hunger. When Sam awoke, he was alone. The cavern was still, eerily silent. He could feel the remnants of the venom in his veins, but his body had begun to heal. He tried to stand, his legs shaky, and looked around. The spiders were gone, but the webbing still clung to the walls, glistening in the dim light. Sam stumbled forward, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He had to escape. He had to get out. As he approached the entrance, he heard something behind him, a soft, skittering noise. He turned, his heart racing, but saw nothing. Then the ground beneath him began to shake again, and the walls trembled. The sound of something moving beneath the earth was unmistakable. It was far too deep for the spiders, and it was too powerful. Sam froze in place as the sound grew louder. It's not over. And that was when he realized the spiders weren't the true predators. They were merely guardians. Something far more ancient, far more terrifying lay beneath the earth, something that had been waiting. The ground cracked open, and Sam saw the monstrous shape of a creature too large to comprehend, its body stretching through the stone, its jaws wide, its eyes gleaming with an intelligence that chilled him to the core. It had been waiting for them all along. The spiders were not the end. They were just the beginning.
Thank you for listening to this story. Your support means a lot and helps keep these tales coming. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to subscribe and follow for more dark and immersive stories just like this one. New horrors await. Don't miss what's coming next.